plus 7 squared, and we get 9 plus 49, which is the square root of 58. What goes into 58? 2 and, so 2, 8, 29. Can that be simplified at all? Does that simplify? Nope. So we are good there. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is find the slope of these line segments. What makes something perpendicular? What makes something perpendicular?
Isn't it if it's like...
What do you know about the slopes of perpendicular lines? We talked about this earlier.
I don't.
What are you saying, Devin, underneath your breath over there?
Opposite.
They're opposite reciprocals. Opposite. Change the sign. Reciprocal.
I know opposite.
Flip it.
No, reciprocal.
Flip it.
That's the one that's like...
Yeah, that's why I was trying to define both of them for you. I didn't know which one it was for you.
I know opposite. Opposite's like something you should know.
I get it, but just making sure, you never know, Rob. So, AB. So we do the slope of AB. So that's negative 3 minus 3 over negative 1 minus a negative 3. So you do the y's on top and the x's on bottom. So two negatives make a positive. So that's negative 6 over 2, which is negative 3.
Almost flew up in the car today.
Do you need to go to the nurse?
No.
Okay, just let me know if you do. Okay, I just want to make sure. I don't want to... If you don't feel good, just let me know so you can run to the bathroom. Okay? BD is negative 1, negative 3, and D is 2, 0. So we do the 0 minus a negative 3 over 2 minus a negative 1. Minus a negative becomes a positive, so that's 3 over 3, which is 1. AD, A is negative 3, 3, and D is 2, 0. So we do the slope, that's 0 minus 3 over 2 minus a negative 3. If anybody's confused by what I'm doing, let me know, because I'm going through this pretty quickly because this is an Algebra 1 skill. So if you're lost and confused, let me know. I'm just assuming that you guys were fine from Algebra 1. Does that make sense? So if I am assuming something wrong, just let me know. And then AC is negative 3, 3, and 1, negative 1. So that's negative 1 minus 3 over 1 minus a negative 3. So that's negative 4 over 4, which is negative 1. Are any of those perpendicular? Are any of those perpendicular? Do any of them have opposite reciprocal slopes? Which ones?
AC and BD.
AC and BD, because 1 over 1 is flipped to 1 over 1, right? So 1 doesn't really change, but it changes sign. So AC is perpendicular to BD. All right, so questions on the distance formula or slope, because you're going to be using those today to classify these triangles. All right, so how do you classify triangles? First, you classify by the number or by the sides. So you classify a scalene if none of them are the same length. At least two congruent sides is an isosceles, so two sides the same length. And then three sides congruent means three sides the same length. And then second, you classify by the angles. So three angles that are acute means three angles less than 90 degrees. So a right angle is one right angle, meaning it equals 90 degrees. Think perpendicular. One obtuse angle means one angle greater than 90 degrees. And then three congruent angle means three angles of the same length. So we're going to classify by the number of sides and then determine if it is a right triangle. We're not going to really deal with the angles as much as we can determine if it's a right triangle because we can tell if they're perpendicular based on the perpendicular slopes, right? So we can determine right angles, but you guys haven't learned how to determine angle sizes. In other cases, we'll talk about trigonometry at some point, and that will teach you guys how to do that. We can kind of eyeball it, though, because if it has three congruent sides, the angles have to be congruent, so that would make it an equilateral. Still. All right. So classify triangle OPQ by its sides, then determine if it's a right triangle. So the first thing you need to do is the distance formula for all three sides. So we have side OP, we have side PQ, and we have side OQ that we will have to find the distance of. OQ is not in the same level as the other ones. Okay. Hunter, what is the change in x of OP? 1. 0 to negative 1 is 1. Gabe, how about the change in y of OP?
It goes up 2.
2. 0 to 2 is 2, so we do 1 squared plus 2 squared. So that's 1 plus 4, which is the square root of 5. See what questions you have. We did the distance formula at the beginning of the year, so if you need help, let me know. Okay, Morgan, what's the change in x for PQ? Be careful. Negative 1 is on one side of 0 and 6 is on the other side of 0. So from here to here is, Morgan, from here to here is, and then from here to here is, so 1 and 6 is 7. So that's just change in x of 7. Carmichael, how about the change in y for PQ? 1, 2 to 3 is 1. So that's 50. We can do a factor tree for 50. 5 times 10 is 50, right? 5 times 2 is 10. What is that simplified? Who remembers how to do that? What is that simplified? What is that simplified? Katie?
5 square root 2.
Good. So whenever we have a pair of numbers, that goes on the outside and the loner stays inside. So it has a length of 5 square root 2. You guys are very quiet today. So besides Lindsay, is anybody else missing? No, Rob went to the bathroom and Harmony's gone. Okay. Kylie, change in X for OQ.
6.
Good. Change in Y, Austin, for OQ.
3.
So we simplify that. So what is your answer for that one? Olivia, what would the answer be to that one then? After you simplify it. Perfect. So, do we have any congruent sides? Do we have any congruent sides? No. So what kind of triangle is it if no sides are congruent? Look at the previous slide. Classifying by sides, what would that make it? Carmichael? It is a scalene triangle. So far we know it's scalene. So now we're going to classify by angles. We're going to determine if it's a right triangle. And to do that, you're going to find the slope of all three sides. So OP is 0, 0, and negative 1, 2. So to find the slope, y is on top, x is on bottom, change in y over change in x, which makes it a slope of negative 2. Keep finding the slopes. Let's go. You need to show your work. It's for your notes. So PQ is negative 1 and 2 and 6, 3. So we find the slopes of those. So y is on top. X is on bottom. Minus a negative becomes a positive. So that's 1 over 7. And then OQ, 0 minus 3 over 0 minus 6 is negative 3 over negative 6, which is 1 over 2. Do we have any perpendiculars? Do we have any perpendiculars? Which ones, Jill, are perpendicular? Go ahead and finish writing it down, and then you can answer my question if you're not done yet. OP and OQ are opposites, different signs, and they flip each other, right? So they're opposite reciprocals. So OP is perpendicular to OQ. So is this a right triangle? If we have a perpendicular, is it a right triangle? Yeah, so this is a right scalene triangle. You sure you don't want to go to the nurse, Rob? I know, but even just maybe laying down there might be helpful at this point. You know what I mean? Just let me know. You just...
I'll just give it.
Oh, it's fine. I'll have it uploaded too. Yep. Question so far? It's the same process. It's a lot of work, right? Are you texting her the notes?
No.
Oh, I thought you were taking pictures of them. You're fine. Okay. So, question so far. Let's do the next one then. So, classify the triangle by its sides and then determine if it's a right triangle. So, the first thing we have to do is the distance formula on all three sides. So A is 0, 3 and B is 7, 1. So Abby, what is the change in X?
7.
Good. 0 to 7 is 7. Logan, how about the change in Y? 2, because distance is always positive. We always keep it positive. So that's 7 squared plus 2 squared, which is 49 plus 4, which is 53. Can we simplify 53? Does anything go into 53? So that's the length of that. BC is 7, 1 and 1, negative 1. Desiree, what's the change in X for BC? So B to C is 7 to 1. So what's that change?
6.
Perfect. Daniel, what is the change in Y? So that is the square root of 36 plus 4, which is the square root of 40. Then we can go from there. So how does that simplify then? Emma, what's the simplification of that one? So 2 comes out. What's underneath? 10. 2 times 5 is 10. They don't have partners. Finally, AC. Hayden, what is the change in X? Bless you, by the way. What is the change in X, Hayden? Good. Cameron, what is the change in Y? Are you saying from 3 to negative 1? Which one are you looking at? It's not 2. Be careful. You're at negative 1, and you're going to 3. Where would it be? Huh? And distance is always positive, so that would just be 4. Okay? So that's 1 squared plus 4 squared, which is 1 plus 16. We cannot simplify the square to 17. Are any of the sides the same length? Are any of our sides the same length? Ian, if no sides are the same length, what kind of triangle is it? This is a scalene. All right, so now we have to see if any of the sides are right, so we find the slope of each side. So I do 1 minus 3 over 7 minus 0, which is negative 2 over 7. Is anybody confused on how I'm finding the slope? Do we all understand that from last year? Please don't be shy. Ask questions if you have them. So B is 7, 1. C is 1, negative 1. So I do negative 1 minus 1 over 1 minus 7, which is negative 2 over negative 6, which simplifies to 1/3. And then AC negative 1 minus 3 over 1 minus 0 is negative 4 over 1, which is just negative 4. Are any of those side lengths perpendicular? Or, are any of those slopes perpendicular? Sorry. Casey, are any of them perpendicular? Just looking at this, we can't really tell if it's obtuse or acute. I'm going to guess it's probably more acute. This angle looks like it's less than 90 degrees, but that's just an assumption right now. So we're just going to call this a scalene triangle. You would have to actually measure that to, yeah. So that one is just a scalene triangle. We're not going to classify it. It's probably an acute scalene triangle. It looks like all the angles are less than 90 degrees, right? But we are not going to assume that. All right, one last problem. Go ahead and plot that and connect it. Did you plot your points right? It's like, I know I saw somebody had it graphed already, and I was like, I don't think it was graphed right now that I'm looking at this. So we do the distance formula. Before we do this, how many degrees are in a triangle? What is the angle? Thank you. Yes, triangles, 3 angles add up to 180. I couldn't ask the question. Thank God Katie knew what I was talking about. Yes. So remember, all 3 angles add to 180 in a triangle every single time. All right? Let's first do the distance formula on all 3 sides. So, Kylie, change in X for AB.
3.
Good. Helena, what's the change in Y?
3.
So we do the simplification, so that's 9 times 2 and 3 times 3. So Abby, how would you write that up then after it's simplified? Good. So So then we have BC, so that's 3, 3, and negative 3, 3. Ian, what's the change in x for BC?
6.
Good. Casey, what's the change in y for BC?
Oh, 0.
Yeah. Square root of 36 is 6. You need to do a factor tree, you can. So, if I did a factor tree, it'd be 3 and 2, 3 and 2, right? So 2 times 2 times 3 times 3. 3 times 2 is 6. Devin, what's the change in x for AC?
3.
Good. And Emma, how about the change in y? What? Good. So how does that simplify then? Okay, 3 square root of 2. How many sides are congruent? 2 sides are congruent. Hayden, what is the name for that kind of a triangle? So far we know this is an isosceles. We don't know if it's right or not yet, so that's the next thing we have to do. So I have 3 minus 0 over 3 minus 0, which is 3 over 3, which is just 1. BC is 3, 3, and 3 negative, or sorry, negative 3, 3. Right, okay. So that's 3 minus 3 over negative 3 minus 3, which is 0 over negative 6. What's 0 over negative 6? It's okay to have 0 on top, so it is, Jill? 0. And then AC is 0, 0, and 3, negative 3, 3. So that's 3 minus 0 over negative 3 minus 0, which is 3 over negative 3, which is negative 1. Are any of those perpendicular? Which two are perpendicular, Hunter? So AB is perpendicular to AC, which means that this is a right isosceles triangle. Okay. Let me get the homework out to you. You guys have the last, 13 minutes to work on it.